When it comes to the Audi Q8, all of the hype is around the RS Q8, Audi's flagship sports SUV. But now that they've put the petrol V8 into the SQ8, I'm going to tell you in this video why I think this subtle sledgehammer is one of Audi's best cars. Just like anything, it's not perfect, but this makes a great case for buying a sophisticated sports SUV. Chasing cars, honest reviews of your next car. Brought to you by Budget Direct. Underneath this beautiful Audi exclusive Galaxy Blue painted bonnet sits the elephant in the room for the SQ8, the engine transplant. In Australia, the SQ8 and the three-row SQ7 used to use a much loved diesel V8 engine. Unfortunately, the Volkswagen Group stopped building the diesel V8 about a year ago, so supply has now run dry. And for 2023, these cars now shift across to a detuned version of the RS Q8's 4-litre twin-turbo petrol V8. Now immediately you're probably thinking the fuel consumption is going to be crazy, but later on I'm going to tell you exactly how much fuel this sports SUV uses, and it's not going to be as high as you're expecting. Of course, you also get the benefits of a much better sounding engine. This thing sounds really tasty, both on startup and when you're hard on the gas. Not surprising when you've got 500 horsepower. This is a 373 kilowatt engine, 770 Newton meters of torque, so really no slouch. Getting into the Q8 starts with these frameless doors, just like an old school coupe. So that's kind of cool. Although when driving it, you do notice some kind of shifting sounds from next to you because of course we don't have the benefit of the extra rigidity of a piece of trim running over the top of the window, but you just turn the Bang & Olufsen up a bit louder, I guess. Now, this particular interior is relatively standard actually as SQ8s go. We do have rotor grey leather on this car, a beautiful match for the blue paint outside. This is included as standard. It's Napa leather. We do have the cooling function option onto this car though, and that's great for hot days, and we're starting to get a few of those now here in Australia. The carbon trim is also optional, and I usually dislike carbon fibre trim in car cabins, but Audi's gloss one is actually quite attractive, and it's a good pairing with the grey leather. If I was ordering the car, I'd probably go for the grey wood that you can get instead, but hey, that's just me. Now this car is a bit of a semiconductor special because I know you're gonna have to hold your hats for this one because it's just so shocking. The steering wheel, you have to adjust it manually. The car is supposed to have a little nib where you can adjust it electrically, but you do get a $600 discount on this $200,000 drive-away car for skipping that, so I guess that's a small win. But we look forward at Audi's virtual cockpit, still one of the best infotainment screens in the business there, full satellite map, the whole shebang. And over here we've got Audi's stacked MMI touch infotainment system. I still prefer that old rotary dial you got in Audis a million years ago, but at least this system is easy to use, crisp, high resolution, bright, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And I mentioned the Bang & Olufsen, really lovely warm acoustic to this stereo. You can go further in here with the sensory package, which gives you full leather over all of these secondary surfaces. As it sits, it's just slush molded, soft plastic, which is fine, but you can take this car pretty far if you want. But once you start ticking all the option boxes, well, the SQ8 basically becomes the price of an RS Q8, and that's kind of what you're trying to avoid here in the first place. As you can see, the SQ8 is a lush 5-seat SUV. If you want a third row, go for the SQ7, but ultimately the SQ8 looks cooler outside. So if you don't need to take someone else's snotty children around with you on weekends, then the SQ8 could suit you just fine. As you can see for myself, at 6 foot, I've got heaps of room. Headroom's good, legroom is amazing behind my own driving position, tow room is perfect. You could even get someone in this seat here if you really needed to, although they're going to bonk their head on this lighting installation here, and there is a hump in the floor. So it's really just a very plush 4-seater, this car. We've got air vents, we've got quad zone climate, very lush. Flip down armrest, cup holders, all of that. Still this beautifully finished Napa leather, but this car has surely got to be one of the worst for the back window test. That's it. That's as far down as it goes. But one touch that takes you right back to the 1980s is that both seats back here have individual ashtrays. The Audi Q8 is actually my favorite coupe SUV, mainly because it doesn't look like an egg. And you don't really want a car to look like an egg when you've just dropped 200 grand on a sports SUV, in my opinion. It's a crisp looking car, and even though it's been on the road for 3 or 4 years now, I think it still looks quite fresh. As I mentioned at the start, this paint, Galaxy Blue, is an Audi exclusive shade that costs $7,600. I find that kind of amusing because there are actually two dark blue paints on the standard palette at no extra cost for the SQ8, so someone really likes Galaxy Blue, but it is definitely a pretty shade. Now around here on the SQ8, this car's got a black pack, not the extended black pack, just the normal one, which means you still get silver rings. You also get silver quad tailpipes, and they are real, which is great. Power tailgate, of course, and that opens up to show you your 605 litre boot. Because the SQ8, a coupe SUV, is not too cutaway, it's quite practical back here. Nice carpeted floor. The cargo blind gets out of your way automatically. We've got some netting, the ability to drop the car here at the back because we are on air suspension. And then onto the boot floor, you actually do get a space saver spare wheel, which is kind of a surprise because it's packaged around the Bang & Olufsen subwoofer, and controls up here to close the boot, if they work, to close the boot or close it and lock the car. Just before we drive it, let's talk about how much fuel it uses. Now, I don't think you should be buying a 168 grand sports SUV if fuel consumption is your first concern. That being said, it's a valid question compared to the diesel V8, how much fuel the 2023 SQ8 really uses. Well, here's the answer. On the highway, it is amazing. It runs in 4-cylinder mode when you're cruising, and that's why it gave me 10 litres per 100 kilometers on my road trip yesterday. When you're cruising sort of sporty back roads, you can expect 13 litres per 100 Ks, but sure, its urban consumption is definitely higher than the old diesel. I've been getting 16 litres per 100 kilometers when commuting around town. It's got an 85 litre fuel tank, so your range is still okay, but the old diesel SQ8 used to be able to do like 1200 Ks to a tank, which was awesome. Audi sells 5-year service plans for the SQ8 at a bit of a discount. That costs just over 4 grand for this car. Yes, that's expensive, but there's a lot of complicated components in here that need maintenance on a yearly or every 2-year basis. And in terms of warranty, the SQ8 has Audi's 5-year unlimited kilometer coverage. While intellectually it's easy to be a bit disappointed that the SQ8 lost its awesome diesel V8, those worries tend to go away when you launch this new one. Because it sounds like a sports car. And in the year 2022, this kind of is a sports car. And that's because while it is perversely heavy and very large, Audi has done crazy things to the chassis of the SQ8 to make it handle like a car which is much smaller. And that's why on a country road like this, the SQ8 actually feels more like a mid-sized sporty station wagon than it does a large SUV, with one big caveat. And that's that if you are a keen driver and you are going to push the chassis of the SQ8, you really need to option the $10,900 dynamic package, which adds Audi's Quattro Sport differential on the rear axle to help it put power down on corner exit, but much more importantly than that, a 48-volt anti-roll bar system that feeds off the car's mild hybrid unit and can immediately respond to sensor input that the car is starting to experience body roll and keep that body incredibly rigid and flat. And it makes this thing so crazily chuckable and good to drive. Of course, it's hard on tires, and again, you shouldn't be buying a sports SUV like this if you're not going to be able to budget for its excessive tire usage. It'll be much more tire heavy than a hot hatch, for instance, if that's what you're coming out of. But the handling is just terrific, and it puts a smile on everybody's face who experiences it. But what's under the bonnet? Well, that's what this engine swap is all about. We're now using a 373 kilowatts, 500 horsepower, 770 Newton meter, 4-litre twin-turbo petrol V8. It's a family engine from the Volkswagen Group, so we see it cropping up in different cars and different places, but within the Audi lineup, it's really the RS6 engine. It's a little detuned compared to that car and compared to the RS Q8, but it's absolutely no slouch. And actually, the amount of power on offer is really comfortable. You just always have enough grunt to do what you want to do. It really sprints hard when you want it to, this car. It'll show a clean pair of heels to most anything else that you encounter on the road, actually. And the more subtle aesthetic of the SQ8 compared to the really loud RS Q8 is something that appeals to me, even though I get the RS Q8 is very, very cool. Equally, we've got big brakes to help you wipe off the speed that's possible from this new unit too. But Audi haven't forgotten that this is meant to be a quiet Autobahn cruiser, and that's exactly what it is on the highway. Even with optional 22-inch wheels, it's very, very quiet in the cabin, allowing you to enjoy the superb Bang & Olufsen stereo. You're also able to really relax while driving this car because it's got very well-tuned adaptive safety systems, including lane centering and adaptive cruise. It really just takes the edge off those long highway trips and lets you get out of these comfy Napa chairs feeling very relaxed at your destination. And that's kind of what it's all about. So those are my opinions on the updated 2023 Audi SQ8. What an astonishing sports SUV this is. Not only is it a coupe SUV that doesn't look ugly, it also goes incredibly hard in a straight line with that beautiful engine swap. It's good on the brakes, and the handling is amazing if you go for the dynamic package, which gives it uncanny ability to resist roll in the corners. So, would I buy one? No, because I'd buy the Audi RS4 station wagon instead for similar money. But with that car, of course, you've got to take a V6. I completely understand why you'd want one of these. It's subtle, it's a sledgehammer, and it's a petrol V8. What's not to like about that? Keen to know your opinions, so let me know down below in the comments. While you're there, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, and as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.